Arm wrestling has long been touted by many as a strength sport, and while I don't disagree with that, I think that along with that notion comes a huge problem. That is, the lack of hypertrophy training for arm wrestling. And where you can observe this phenomenon can be roughly split into two groups: those who intentionally don't want to build size, and those who don't understand why size is important. Now, there are unique problems inherent to either of these camps, and to understand the problems more deeply, I want to look at a couple other strength sports to explain to you why and how I think the problems come about. So, first off, on the other extreme of the spectrum, we have bodybuilding, not necessarily a strength sport, but it's in the fitness circle. Over here, we see almost the complete opposite philosophy compared to arm wrestling. For bodybuilding, all that matters is size and aesthetics. Strength in bodybuilding is almost an afterthought, but that's not to say that bodybuilders are not strong, because a lot of them are. You look at legends like Ronnie Coleman, Tom Platz, Franco Columbu lifting ridiculous weights in the gym, and you can't tell me that these guys weren't strong. However, in the arm wrestling circle, I think it's almost become sort of an ego thing, and it's popular to want to show off and say that, oh, that huge bodybuilder guy isn't that strong. His muscles are just for show. And this is exemplified by the tons of popular videos showing smaller sized experienced arm wrestlers beating bigger but less experienced guys or bodybuilders in a sport that they're obviously less skilled in. Now, I think there are two problems with this. Number one, I think sometimes it's slightly in bad taste. I understand it's entertaining and all, but come on, the guy doesn't even arm wrestle, and you're trying to show off by beating him on a table? That's like trying to beat Usain Bolt in a marathon. Is it impressive? I guess, but he doesn't even train for that sport. And number two, this one's a little more insidious. I think it diminishes and downplays the importance of muscle size for strength. Just look at all the world's strongest man competitors. I think it's safe to say that none of those guys are small by any stretch of the imagination. Think of all the world record holders for things like the deadlift, bench press, clean and jerk. All those guys are freaking ginormous. However, I fully understand that not everyone has the genetics for that sort of size, which is why I think it's, in a sense, easier for the average person to want to almost console themselves by hiding behind the notion of pound for pound strength. It's much easier for someone to root for a somewhat unintimidating looking guy like Akimbo or Rahul Panikkar when he gets a pin on the much larger Larry Wheels. But size is absolutely important. I'm sure you can give me 100 examples of guys who are small but still strong, and to those people I have two words for you: Levan Saginashvili. But of course, being a weight class sport, I do understand the concerns of the group of people who purposefully do not want to gain size for fear of being less competitive. This is a very real concern. One example that I learned from Olympic weightlifting is Lee Dae-in. When the 81 kilo category was changed to 89 kilos, he found himself in a tough spot, having to compete against much heavier opponents while he himself could not gain any more muscle size for his frame. Even in arm wrestling, we see the top guys purposefully staying in lower weight classes to avoid guys that they know they can't beat in the higher weight classes. But even in other weight class strength sports, such as powerlifting, it is extremely common for athletes to still train with distinct hypertrophy and strength blocks. You still need to be as big as you can for your weight class because a bigger muscle is a stronger muscle. There's just no way around it. In the real world, muscle size is pretty much the biggest correlating factor for muscle strength. Don't get me wrong, there are a ton of other factors that contribute to muscle strength. But most of them, like tendon insertions, neurological genetics, or muscle fiber types, are not trainable. But what you can for sure train is your muscle size. Muscle size potentiates muscle strength, which means a bigger muscle has the potential to be a stronger muscle. The typical arm wrestling specific lifts we commonly see done by many Western arm wrestlers today have very limited range of motion, and sometimes are even completely isometric. While these methods are completely fine for building the strength we need, they are suboptimal for building muscle size. Good hypertrophy training involves a slow, controlled, eccentric portion of the lift, with a focus on getting a really good stretch of the muscle fibers at the end of the range of motion. On the other hand, if you watch a lot of how the Russians train, they do dedicate a good portion of their training to full range of motion, hypertrophy style training, and I think there's something to take away from that. And that's why I feel this hyper-focus on strength alone in arm wrestling can inhibit progress in a lot of people. Not having dedicated phases for gaining size can put a ceiling on your maximum strength potential. There's only going to be so much that you can do with your 12-inch biceps, and if you want to get stronger, those measurements are going to have to go up. I think that for the vast majority of beginner to intermediate arm wrestlers out there, trying to min-max your size to strength ratio should not be a major concern for you. You are not the Lee Dayan of arm wrestling, and unless you're in the running for the top few positions in the world or even just in your country, is it really worth it to stunt your progress for a second place trophy at your local 155 class at the state fair? For some people, it's worth it, and to that I say more power to you. But for the rest of you who are newer to the sport, for your first couple of years at least, I strongly encourage you to just focus on getting bigger and stronger. Not to the point that you're just putting on obscene amounts of fat and weight, but do so in a way that you can continuously make strength gains in the gym and on the table. Once you've got a couple years under your belt, then you have a better understanding about your level in the sport. And then you can start thinking about maybe cutting weight for a certain class. And lastly, I want to talk about the health aspect to this. While not directly related to size, hypertrophy training also gives time for your body to take a break. Constantly doing strength-focused training with very heavy weights takes a toll on your joints and connective tissue. Arm wrestling is already a very demanding sport on the tendons, ligaments, and joints. And if you're competing often on top of your training, it's worthwhile having some time set aside to let your body heal. Also, hypertrophy style training takes your muscles through the full range of motion. And on top of that, if you're also doing it for opposing muscle groups such as the triceps, shoulders, that are usually neglected in most arm wrestling specific training, it's going to be way healthier for you in the long run. You'll have better strength through the full range of motion, healthier joints, and fewer muscle imbalances. What do you guys think about this? I know that in the arm wrestling circles that I'm in, it's still quite common to only think about strength training and not so much about size or hypertrophy training for arm wrestling, which I think is a pity, but I'm hoping that this video opens up more room for discussion for this topic. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'm Greg, and I'll see you in the next one.